Welcome to Friday Fish Facts. I'm your host, Ron DeSantis. Today we're going to set up an African cichlid tank, a tank that we do not have in the fish room, but we're going to get going on it. Now normally you want a big tank like a 55 gallon up to 120 gallon, and people will pack them in with mbunas, haps, peacocks typically, and they jam as many fish as they can in that tank because they're going to avoid aggression. We're going to do something a little different. I'm only going to get a trio of fish, a dwarf mbuna, and we'll show you what they are at the end of the video. And my goal is going to be to try and breed those fish. So normally you want a lot of hiding spots because you've got so many fish and you move things around to temper down the aggression. But we're going to have the hiding spots because we want to have fry, but we're not super worried about the aggression. So let's get into this video.
First, we need a stand. Since I'm a sheet metal worker, I'm going to make my own. A wood stand is perfectly acceptable, but because we're going to be using a tank that's a little bit larger, I would go ahead and not use a dresser or something like that. Use a stand that's made for a fish tank. So now we've got it all painted up. It's time for a background. Now these brand new 40-gallon breeders came with the cardboard, so I'm going to use these cardboard as a shield. I'm also going to put some painter's tape on the side there just in case I overspray. And then I just spray just like that. Now you can use a tape on background if you want. This is just what I like to use. Now we're going to have to cycle our tank. I'm using a Fluval C4 here, and I've got it on my 20 long Queen Arabesque tank. It's capable for up to 70 gallons, and this is going to start growing some beneficial bacteria for me.
Now that we've got the stand built, the background's painted, we need to talk about what kind of substrate we're going to use. Now my water here is very soft. It's got a real low pH. At max it's 6.8, sometimes up to 7, but it's often down around 6. So we need to put some coral in here to get that pH up because African cichlids like their 8.0. So what we've chosen is we're going to do a sand coral, and I'll show you the options that we've got here that we're going to put in the tank. So here's the sand that we've chosen. Now you can either choose to buy bags like this, or you can buy it in bulk like this. Now I would have bought all of it in bulk, but I cleaned them out, so I needed to buy this bag to top it all up. I've also got some pieces of coral here. Now these I'm going to sprinkle in the substrate, and I'm also going to put it into the top of the filter, which I'll show you how I do that once we get the filter onto this tank. Now this coral here is also good for some of your live bears like guppies, because I want that pH to stay at least 7 for my guppies. I'll sprinkle some of this just in the substrate of the guppy tanks as well. So next up, we got to find the appropriate heater for our tank. The two brands I would recommend for a larger tank are Fluval and Eheim. The Eheim is a little bit more difficult to calibrate, but it's often cheaper than the Fluval, so that's why I went with the Eheim this time. This one happened to be on special. So we are using the hang-on back filter, and we want to have the heater in the flow of the water so we can evenly disperse the heat throughout the tank. We don't have hot spots and cold spots. Now one thing I'm going to do that most people with African cichlids don't do is I'm going to put a plant in there. This is jungle val. This plant, this grass, tall grass looking stuff here in my 220 gallon. Now I've only ever planted the stuff along the back, and then it's grown along the sides here on its own, come down through here, growing up in the front. This stuff will grow well in high pH, so I'm going to take a bit of that and I'm going to put it in the back of our tank. We've just pulled this runner of jungle val out of the 220 gallon. Now we're going to put it into our 40 gallon with the African cichlids. Now you don't have to do this part, but when I put this thing in, I'm also going to put in one of these root tabs from Aquarium Co-op. It doesn't have to be Aquarium Co-op, it's just what I happen to have. So I'm going to put them in, and we're going to plant the jungle val. Now we're moving our established filter over to the tank. And this is where I talked about this here, this compartment here. This is where I'm going to put some coral as well, just to make sure we keep that pH nice and high. Okay, so here's the fish we're going to put in. Pseudotropheus solosi. The blue one there is the male. The two yellow or yellowy orange ones are the females. So anytime I'm adding any fish, I don't want to have the light on because I want them to settle in. And I'm gonna put them in their tank here. Now I bought these from a breeder who keeps them between 78 and 79 degrees. And this tank is sitting at 79 degrees right now. So we're gonna let them get acclimatized for a little while, and then we're gonna let them go. And in a few hours, when the lights come on naturally, we will enjoy looking at them. So this species here, if I was to put another type of species in with them, they can be very aggressive. But within themselves, they're not too bad. You're gonna have just the one dominant male, which we only have one male in here anyway. And then the subdominant males will either be a light blue, or sometimes they're gonna stay yellow, or just very little bit of blue on them. Now I'm gonna need to add a few more hiding spots in here because they can be a shy fish, and the more hiding spots you have, the more likely those shy fish are gonna come out. It's also going to be extra spots for fry to hide. Now I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to take the eggs or fry out and strip the females and raise them in another tank, or if I'm going to give them a try and let them try it in this tank first. Anyway, I hope you learned something about how to set up your first African cichlid tank. Join me next week for another edition of Friday Fish Facts.